After 10 minutes, Nicholas Grant checked his watch for the third time and was 45 minutes behind schedule. The restaurant was filled with holiday cheer. He sat alone at a table for two, enjoying wine and laughter while families joined in on Christmas Eve. Feeling increasingly foolish, he says. Despite having built up a vast career in tech consulting at the age of 39, Nicholas had never been able to build. His younger sister, Catherine, had been trying to persuade him to go back to reality after her engagement with him had failed 5 years earlier. She had arranged a blind date with her yoga instructor's friend, but due to exhaustion and his own loneliness, he agreed to the date. As Nick had assured her, she was intelligent, kind, and could use some positive energy right now. It was clear to Nicholas that those who sought solace often came with challenges. However, there was a certain assurance in his sister's voice that convinced him to accept, even though he had reservations. As the snow began to fall outside the restaurant windows, Nicholas pondered if it was his first time standing up. After researching him online and seeing his net worth, some women became apprehensive, while others were more interested in his money. Despite this, relationships don't last forever and he should depart. He had an excellent penthouse, a bottle of expensive scotch, and several contracts to pour over. Although not perfect, it wasn't the worst on Christmas Eve, but he had to make do with it. Perhaps it was the memory of his sister's exuberant behavior, or maybe he had no place to go. Consequently, Nicholas ordered another glass of wine and waited patiently for the door to open, uncovering a cold breeze and snow. A woman entered, and even from across the room, causing him to see the distress written on her face. Her hair was wavy and slightly disheveled, and she wore a cream coat that had undergone some improvement. A little boy, who appeared to be around 4 or 5 years old, was holding her hand with his brown hair sticking up in licks, as she spoke to the hostess who pointed at Nicholas. As she approached, Nicholas noticed that she had been crying. Her eyes were red, her makeup was smudged, and her beauty was delicate. However, it was the exhaustion in her eyes that caught him off guard. "What do you think?" she asked me. "Sioffer Brennan, I'm feeling incredibly sorry for my tardiness. I understand that you're not meant to leave, but I need to clarify. Please sit down," Nicholas said softly, standing to retrieve a chair for her. The little girl was taken aback by the gesture, and she hesitated before accepting it. The boy looked back at him with brown soles. "I was crying because the babysitter didn't show up and her car remained stationary," he said. With a stoic demeanor, Sophie whispered something that made her feel ashamed and embarrassed. She then placed her son in her seat, indicating that her legs might not be strong enough. When the waiter reached for her hot chocolate and water, she was able to calm down and relax. Upon glancing at him, there was an expression that tugged at his chest. The feeling of shame was accompanied by a deep sense of exhaustion, as if someone had been carrying too much for too long. "I'm sorry, Mom. I canceled my babysitter at the last minute. I made an effort to find someone else on Christmas Eve, but my car wouldn't turn on and I couldn't afford a cab. With Owen by my side, I had to ride 2 buses through the snow." She paused, slightly unfazed. "I should have called them earlier, but I ended up canceling it." Catherine's kind words indicated that she was eagerly anticipating this, and I thought it would be better for me to arrive later, even though I couldn't do anything about it, which made her laugh. "I can confirm that it was foolish. I've ruined your evening and my son may have been affected in some way. We'll have to go back in time. My heart is heavy." As she got up, Nicholas reached out to her, his hand barely touching hers. "Don't go, please," he said. "I'll have to buy you both dinner at least." Sophie looked at him curiously. "You're still not interested in having dinner with me. I arrive more than an hour late with my child, and I look like I've had a stroke of flu. This isn't what you expected." "Well, no, not at all. It's not the worst first date, but it was worth it." Owen grasped his mother's arm. "Mommy, I'm hungry, and this place smells wonderful." Sophie closed her eyes for a moment, while Nicholas watched her shoulders slump in defeat. When she opened them again, there was resignation there. "It's time to move on. We won't be spending too much time in your dinner table, let alone over dinner. Instead, we'll be discussing what Owen had eaten for dinner and how untouched it was." Nicholas began to piece together the story as Sophie, a 31-year-old single mother who worked as an online medical transcriptionist from her home. After her father's departure during her pregnancy, Owen was left with debt and an unpaying lease on apartments. She had moved to a smaller area, continued her job, and been unable to make ends meet since meeting Catherine, who was offering free yoga classes at the community center. They had become friends. Sophie's absence from a date for over 5 years prompted Catherine to make an offer for her brother, and she remarked, "She sounds like some sort of Christmas miracle. You're smart, successful, kind-hearted, just like Christmas." It was too good to be true. I confessed my lack of interest and my busy schedule, but she wouldn't say no. Later on, she offered to babysit until she caught the flu last night. "I'm sorry," Nicholas said. "As for your words, Catherine described you with the same level of euphoria." Sophie looked back at her old coat on her chair and Owen's red coat, which she probably couldn't afford to replace. "I can't fathom what she said, but the reality is way out of this. Look," she met his eyes and he saw steel underneath. "I'm 31 years old, living in a 500 FT apartment and working 60 hours weekly to keep the lights on and food in the fridge. I also buy my clothes from thrift stores and donate my son's toys at garage sales. Despite this, I don't want to face the challenges of living off-season. Why did you choose to take 2 buses on Christmas Eve without standing up?" Nicholas whispered something about a person he had never met before, causing Sophie to stare at him with confusion and an unsettling feeling. "Is this genuine? It doesn't matter to you that I'm a complete mess. You're not me, no one's better than me. We've got you on your side." Nicholas looked at Owen, who was arranging his chicken fingers in order of importance. Despite feeling exhausted and scared, Sophie finds solace in her son's presence and believes that his efforts are well received, which is why she credits him with making her day so much more than she bargained for. "This is something I still strive for, especially when it comes to raising a child." The conversation between Nicholas and Sophie was more casual than he had anticipated. Sophie shared information about Owen's obsession with trains, the challenges of a homeschool education system, and his desire to return to school as an adult nurse, among other topics. Nicholas frequently mentioned loneliness and success, as well as material that brought happiness and contentment to those who shared his experiences with him. Additionally, Nicholas discussed his own personal struggles and those of others who may have experienced similar experiences. After a long and exhausting night, Owen fell asleep with his head on the table. Sophie looked at her watch and smiled. The last bus was due to leave in 20 minutes. "You don't have to do that, as per Nicholas. It's already dark and you have a sleeping baby on Christmas Eve. Let me assist you." The look on Sophie's face disintegrated. She nodded and let out a cry. "I'm not feeling like this," she said. "It's been a tough couple of months, but I don't think I'm deserving of the kindness that everyone has shown me." Nicholas walked around the table and sat down by her chair. "Sophie, please take care. You are deserving of more than what you've been given. I'd like to drive you home, even though I don't feel sorry for you, and I want you to know that it was a wonderful evening and that you both are safe." She looked at his face. She must have found something that pleased her, since she nodded and allowed him to help with her coat. In Nicholas's Mercedes, Owen woke up feeling content with the heated seats and smooth ride. He talked about everything from the restaurant to the snow and nothing. Despite the crowds, he was awed by everything. As Sophie sat in the passenger seat, it was now peaceful, and we could watch the city lights pass by. When they arrived at their apartment building, Nicholas felt a sense of emptiness. The area was rough, with street lights that were broken more often than they were fixed. Unfortunately, the building appeared to be in poor condition with exposed paint and broken windows. "We are here," Sophie whispered, her voice delicately poised. She was observing his reaction, readying herself for apprehension. "Let me walk you up," Nicholas said softly before turning to look at her. "Let me just show you where I am." Sophie's apartment was located on the 3rd floor, beyond a stairwell that emitted the scent of mildew and old cooking. Sophie had unlocked 3 separate locks on her door before opening it, which revealed squalid interiors. The living room was small, complete with an old couch and TV set on an inexpensive stand. Nicholas could see through one of the doors that was almost empty, while another was barely big enough to fit twin beds and oversized dressers. The presence of trains and books on the floor made it seem like Owen had taken over. Sophie wished for happiness and landed near a resigned area, but Nicholas was unaware of W. Hat was happening. There were no Christmas trees or decorations, only a few drawings on the walls that added color to the otherwise dull space. Upon waking up, Owen was tugging on his mother's hand. "Mommy, can we show Mr. Nicholas my trains?" "It's too late, honey. Mr. Nicholas needs to go home." He remarked upon himself, "I'd like to see Owen train tracks, if that makes any sense." He sat on the floor of Owen's small bedroom for half an hour, listening to the little boy describe the world he had made with his small collection of wooden trains, as Sophie stood in the doorway with an uncomplicated expression. When Owen finally began yawning, Sophie announced it was bedtime. Nicholas said good night and hurried to her living room to get her son ready for bed. He could hear her reading a story with stoicism and Sophie's understanding answers. When she came out, she found Nicholas by the door, looking down at the snowy street below. "Thank you so much," she said softly, thanking him for his kindness. "He doesn't have many men in his life. His father had no interest in being with us, and my father passed away when I was younger." Nicholas looked at her. "Sophie, could you please give me a question? What is your desired outcome? Not Owen, not for a magical moment when everything will be all right. What are your current desires?" Sophie was silent for a long time when she spoke, and her voice was barely above whisper. "I wish I could be constantly feeling tired. My goal is to be able to buy Owen the train set he wants for Christmas without having to worry about staying warm. I want to go to bed one night without worrying about how I'm going to make it work." She gave a moment of clarity. "However, my biggest lesson is that things can still be better if I don't let this happen to me." Slowly nodding, Nicholas replied, "What if I say I can help with that?" Sophie's expression changed from a shiver on her face to one of pity. "I didn't come in that way. I'm not revealing anything here, but what if there was a different approach?" He paused. "My company is always on the lookout for talented individuals for our medical transcription services. Do you have a grasp of terminology and procedures? The need for individuals who can review documents, transcribe meetings, and compile reports is comparable to what you are currently doing, but with better remuneration and perks like health insurance, dental care, and retirement benefits." Sophie looked at him. "You're offering me a job after I arrived late for dinner and brought my child. Nicholas gently corrected you, but it's up to you to decide what happens next." "Sophie, I don't understand, but you're smart and you work harder than everyone else, and I'd be very lucky to have you on my team," she said. Her eyes filled with tears as she pondered why he was acting so foolishly, forgetting the significance of his successful company and his inability to establish a meaningful life for his family. He pondered why Sophie had to endure a snowstorm on Christmas Eve because she had sworn it was for her friend. He also considered Owen's boisterous chatter and Sophie and her lack of self-respect. "I think I'm doing it because my sister is usually right about people," he said. "I firmly believe in the concept of second chances." Or maybe he took a moment to express his own truthfulness. "Perhaps you've reminded me of something I didn't know until just 3 hours ago, which is that the best things in life are not things. They are individuals with a sense of urgency." Sophie held her hands over her face, shaking her shoulders, and Nicholas gave her ample space. When she looked up, she was visibly happy but slightly dazed. She said, "I'll come in for an interview, but I'm going to get the job." But she went on to say, "I have to earn that job. I'm not interested in being a charity. I wouldn't trade anything for anything," he stated. Sophie reached out to him at the door. "Thank you for your patience, Nicholas. I didn't leave until I was late tonight." Even though it was a tough call, he acknowledged Owen's late arrival. While walking down the stairs, he heard her calling and turned to see if she was leaning on the railing with her hair around her face. "You may want to try again sometime," she said with a grunting voice, noting the absence of the buses, the tears, and the disaster. "That's fine, but tonight wasn't a disaster for me." Sophie stood in the doorway of her new apartment, which had 2 genuine bedrooms and airtight windows. It was also the perfect setting for street lights that were functioning, and Owen was busy setting up his trains in his room. Sophie could hear him singing to himself, surrounded by sounds like tears streaming down from the living room window. The job offered by Nicholas turned out to be authentic, not just a pitiful job. It was challenging but also financially rewarding. She had access to health insurance and was able to afford Owen's new clothes, new toys, and all the other things she had been sacrificing. Despite taking things slow, careful not to rush things, Catherine and Owen had developed a strong bond over dinners, park visits, and quiet nights after going to bed. Nicholas had fulfilled both of her promises and her desire to be as patient and empathetic towards Sophie, making her feel more important than she felt. He had never attempted to fix or rescue her, but rather walked beside her as she fixed and saved herself. Owen cherished him. Just last week, Nicholas was asked if he could be his biological father. Sophie had gently explained that these things took place slowly over Owen's eyes, and she had seen hope in those eyes. As the snow began to fall outside her new windows in February, Sophie was left tormenting and contemplated the idea of almost canceling her Christmas Eve and coming face to face with the fact that she was almost going to be gone forever. What could have been the greatest moment of her life? Her phone rang and Nicholas texted her, "We're having dinner tomorrow, let's cook or try." Owens requested his famous burnt pasta. Sophie chuckled and felt the warmth. She replied, "We wouldn't be disappointed. Owen is already considering showing him his new train." "I'm glad you showed up late that night. Sophie, thank you for your patience. Christmas Eve was the best time of my life." With a heavy heart, Sophie held onto the phone and cried uncontrollably. She believed that being late was just one of many good things that happened to someone who had been given another chance, and decided to take on the task for the best possible reason. On Christmas Eve, the person waiting at a table isn't just a blind date. It's the beginning of something extraordinary. And when you're brave enough to show up, you find the right one truly there to see you through the hiccups. They have the courage to keep on coming, even if it means giving you more than you can handle. He had given her something she hadn't had in years, a reason to believe in happy endings. Sophie heard Owen calling for her, excited about the new track configuration. She smiled and returned to the life she had built, thinking of Nicholas who would be with her one and only tomorrow. The story continued as Sophie turned away from the window. It's likely that she is already preoccupied with preparing dinner and devising a way to humor Owen. There are moments when we have to wait patiently. The sum of